Hey, fellow tennis nerds. I got a question from John B. Might be a patron. I'm not sure if that's the John, about my favorite polyester strings. My top 5 poly strings, and I'm going to do one better. I'm going to go through my top 10 poly strings at the moment. I mean, I've been testing hundreds of polyester strings over the years. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but there are many, many poly strings being released all the time. You see that people want to get into the string market. I don't know if the margins are very good. I don't think so. But there are so many different strings, budget strings, softer strings, shaped strings, and yeah, everything in between. So polyester strings, that's for you who seek control, who seek spin, and who want the strings to snap back into place. If you want a softer feel with more power, you go for a natural gut or a multi-filament strings, much more arm-friendly strings. But with polyester strings, you have softer strings. You can hybrid them, putting one in the mains, one in the crosses, and you can get a lot of bite on the ball with these shaped strings. And my favorite ones at the moment are these Grapple Snake Tour M8 or Tour Mate. It's a 1.30 gauge for now. I think they will release more gauges. Co-poly with a very nice feel to it. It's not as stiff as you might think. It gives good control. Durability is nice, but it has kind of a nicer soft feel to it. So I would say I always kind of gravitate towards the medium stiffness level of my strings. I don't like them to be too stiff, like Laxalon 4G, for example. This maybe RPM Blast I'm not such a huge fan of, unless you put down the tension. But this one works both at a slightly higher tension. What would that be? Maybe 53 pounds. But it also works at a very low tension, like I tried this string in a Manarino style tension, 25 pounds, like 11, 12 kilos. So this one works well, and it's kind of the go-to string at the moment in some of my rackets, like the Headboom MP or the Bubble Out Pure Aero. I also really like Headlink's Tour, which was called Experimental in the beginning, Experimental Tour. Very good string. I found it a bit stiff on higher tensions, but as soon as I drop down 44 pounds, 20 kilos, and in some control rackets it plays amazingly well, and it holds tension really long. So I really like this string as well. These are my probably 2 top favorites at the moment, depending a little bit on the rackets I'm testing and I'm using. But for example, this one I can use in a Boom Pro or a Prestige MP like the 2019 that I'm using, and I go down in tension and it plays really, really well. So the orange one a little bit softer, the champagne one in the middle, and the black one is a little bit stiffer. I prefer this champagne one of all of them. Top Spin Max Rotation is a string I mentioned before. It's a 7-sided, very heavily shaped string. It is quite stiff, but I like it in low tensions in my Prestige MP, so that should be mentioned. I'm not sure if it should be on number 3 or whatever, but I can mention that as I've been using that in my Prestige MP for quite a while. I'm not a string breaker, but it just seems to hold tension and still play nicely, despite playing it for many hours. But I wouldn't, consider it even if I have any arm issues, because 7-sided, quite stiff polyesters are not your friend. But it's a good string, the Top Spin Max Rotations. One of the strings I try to use a lot is different types of Hyper G. It could be regular Hyper G, could be a Hyper G prototype that I'm trying, or it's Hyper G Soft. So depending on your preferences, if you want a softer poly, Hyper G Soft is a great example. It does lose tension a little bit quicker, but this one, which is the original, is much better for tension maintenance, or holds tension better, I think, in my opinion. So Hyper G has been one of my favorite strings for a long, long time, and it remains that. Tourline Caviar, I prefer the 125 gauge, but this is a very good string that I've used, with great success in soft drives, in some E-zone rackets. But in the soft drive, this is my favorite string, the Caviar. It's just, holds tension pretty well. Nice, soft feel, medium probably on the stiffness scale. I haven't seen any ratings of this stiffness, but just like a really good string. I just love the feeling of this one. But maybe they have some European distribution with Tourline Caviar, because it's a string I really like. The softer side is the String Project Magic. I think this is the 3rd reel I'm going through, and it's a very good string, quite soft, kind of a mix between a multi-filament and a monofilament. Very soft, so you can string this a little bit higher, and it still plays well. String Project, the Italian company that makes some arm-friendly strings, and this one is one of the more arm-friendly ones. Works pretty well in low tensions as well. So String Project Magic, I've mentioned it before, and I still like it. So it's a very good string. Another not huge string brand, Ukrainian string brand, Miami Tour Hex. As you can see, I've really liked this string. The reel is almost gone. 1.23 gauge. Medium stiffness, pretty good on the arm, I would say. Holds tension well, works well in many different rackets. Just an overall very, very solid string. When it says hex, it usually means it's 6-sided, and this one is. And I really like this. So I tend to go for these medium stiffness strings. I don't want them too soft because I think they drop tension too quickly and I don't get enough control. And I don't want them too stiff because then my arm will tell me what I'm doing wrong. Or if they're stiff, I need to lower tension quite a bit. So those strings are all excellent string options that I keep coming back to. For Yonex rackets, I tend to go Yonex Polytour Pro Yellow. That's the one I like the most in my East zones, for example. I think it's a pretty soft string, relatively speaking, in polyester terms, and it holds tension well, has nice playability and good feel, so I really like that one. Luxlon Alupower Vibe is another new string I really like. Probably my favorite Luxlon string at the moment. It's dampened, has good feeling, a little bit muted for some perhaps, but it actually plays really well, especially in these tighter string patterns like the 6195 1820. One of my favorite strings in this racket, just works really well together. So that's a lot of strings. Generally speaking, for more control, you should go thicker in gauge, stiffer in string stiffness, or higher in tension. Then you will get more control, but beware of your arm. If you want to go for more power and comfort, you should go thinner, softer, or with a lower tension. I tend to think that a thicker string at a lower tension is more arm-friendly than a thinner string at a higher tension. I think the tension is quite important, but that's just my experience. I don't have any scientific data to back that up. So you need to experiment yourself and see what works. But those are all very good strings. There are some other excellent strings I haven't mentioned, such as Vulcan Cyclone, for example. That's a string I used a lot before. MSV Co-Focus Hex, a lot of my friends use this string. Excellent budget polyester in different gauges. So there are so many strings out there. These were just some of the strings that keep popping into my rackets over and over again when I'm not testing a specific string. So hope that answered your question, John. You got a bit more strings than I had intended. This is what happens when you open my head on all the strings I've been testing and playing and so on. So give them a try. Let me know in the comments below if you have any likes or dislikes about these specific strings. If you want to soften a string bit, you can go hybrid, you can reduce the tension. Sometimes you can go poly hybrid. For example, I like Polypower and Element in a hybrid. I use that in several rackets. So you can always play around and experiment with different hybrid combos. That's always fun. And when you find something you like, maybe stick with that so you don't go crazy like I did. And that is all. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day now. And if you want to buy any of these strings, rackets, shoes, whatnot, go to Tennis Warehouse Europe, Tennis Only, or Tennis Warehouse. The links are in the description. I get a small commission if you buy stuff through my link. So big thanks. Have a nice day. Don't forget to play some tennis.